everyone, and a very warm welcome to our webinar on closed loop logistics. Today, we are going to explore how autonomous trucks are transforming ports and factories, turning them into intelligent, always on ecosystems that redefine operational efficiency. I'm Arvind Savarkar, Senior Director at FutureBridge, and I'm delighted to be hosting today's session along with my colleague Nishant Mulchandani. A quick bit about me. I've spent close to 2 decades in consulting, working closely with CXOs and transformation leaders across the mobility and industrial machinery sectors. My work centers on helping organizations anticipate what is next, uncovering new growth avenues, identifying future technologies, and translating disruption into executable business strategies. At FutureBridge, my focus is on guiding clients through the intersection of technology, sustainability, and business innovation, helping them out not just to adapt to changes, but truly thrive in a VUCA world that is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. I'm really excited to connect digitally with all of you today to exchange ideas, challenge perspectives, and discuss how autonomous logistics ecosystems are shaping the next frontier of industrial transformation. Before we get started, I would like my colleague Nishant to introduce himself. Over to you, Nishant.
Thank you, Arvind. Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to all of us joining from different parts of the world. I'm Nishant Mulchandani. I work along with Arvind in automotive and industrial practice here at FutureBridge. As a principal consultant, my role is to guide our clients in different strategic journeys across innovation, market expansion, and diversification. In simple terms, I help organizations to make sense of complex challenges and by turning deep research and sharp insights into practical and forward-looking strategies. My work spans across a wide spectrum from go-to-market design, technology scouting, and a competitive benchmarking to supply chain transformation and partner identification. In many cases, this extends all the way to due diligence for mergers and acquisitions. It's truly a pleasure to be hosting a session with Arvind, and we are excited to take you through some of the powerful insights and real-world perspectives on how autonomous logistics is redefining the future of operations.
All right. Thank you, Nishant. This session will run for about 30 to 35 minutes. And as we go through the presentation, please feel free to post your questions in the chat. We will make sure to take them up toward the end of the session so we can maintain a good flow through the key insights. Now, to set the stage, today's discussion is about the evolution of logistics from linear to truly closed loop systems where autonomous trucks, smart hubs, and connected ecosystems are redefining how goods move and how uptime is maximized and how efficiency and safety converge. Now, as global supply chains become more complex, the push for round the clock operations is accelerating. And traditional logistics models built on batch based operations and human dependent scheduling are giving way to continuous, autonomous, and data driven networks. At the heart of this transformation lies the idea of closed loop logistics, not just automating individual steps, but integrating design, operation, monitoring, and feedback into one seamless, self optimizing system. This shift goes far beyond isolated automation pilots. And we're talking about a fundamental redesign of how ports, factories, and distribution centers interact, creating ecosystems that learn, adapt, and operate 24 by 7 with minimal downtime and maximum throughput. So that's the future we are exploring today, a future where autonomy meets intelligence and logistics becomes an engine of continuous performance. With that, let's move to the next slide, the agenda, and I will walk you through how we've structured today's discussion. Right. So here is a journey we will take together over the next half hour or so. It's really a story about how Logistics is closing the loop and opening the next frontier. We will start with an introduction to closed loop logistics. And when I say closed loop, I don't just mean recycling materials. It's about how data, decisions, and assets now circulate in real time, creating a smarter, self-correcting supply chain. From there, we move into automation, accelerating the next supply chain frontier, where we will see how ports, yards, and factories are transforming into living systems that never truly stop. We will talk about what is fueling that acceleration, the regions, which regions are leading the charge, and the new orchestration models that are emerging globally. Then we will zoom out to the big question every boardroom is asking: where should we invest next? So in strategic investments for sustainable profitability, we will look at the balance between CapEx and OpEx, the real economics of automation, and the risks that decide who wins and who fades. Finally, we will peek into the near future, which is pathways to a fully autonomous supply chain. Imagine 24 by 7 operations where goods, data, and intelligence flow continuously with humans orchestrating rather than operating. We will explore how close we really are to that vision and what disrupts what disruptions it could trigger across the value chain. So the whole session should take about 30 to 35 minutes. Please drop your questions as we go. I will circle back to them at the end, and if something needs a deeper dive, my team and I will be happy to follow up afterward. But before we get started, I would love to quickly introduce FutureBridge, the organization behind this conversation, and how we are helping global manufacturers and logistics players turn automation into measurable advantage. Uh, well, FutureBridge has been, helping global clients navigate change for more than 2.5 decades now. We are headquartered in Utrecht, in the Netherlands, and our entire focus is on tracking the future of industries. Not just what is next quarter, but what is coming over the next 1 to 25 years. Our work combines proprietary data, global ecosystems, and deep industry relationships, helping our clients not only see the next wave of technology, but understand what it means for their business models. Increasingly, our clients are asking very different questions than before. Questions like, where will our next growth curve emerge? When will certain technologies become commercially viable? Who should we partner with or even acquire to get there faster? And that's where we step in, turning foresight into tangible strategy. Our research spans across what we call strategic growth fields, the intersections where industries, technologies, and business models converge. And you will see 5 of those growth fields here: connectivity, autonomy, shared mobility, electrification, and sustainability, all underpinned by exponential technologies like artificial intelligence, robotics, IoT, immersive tech, and 3D as well as 4D printing. And FutureBridge's role is to connect those dots, helping our clients build clarity on when to invest, where to play, and how to win in this accelerating ecosystem. And with that quick overview of FutureBridge and how we help industries navigate the future, let's dive into one of the most exciting transformations we are tracking right now: the rise of closed loop logistics. Now, over the years, logistics has evolved from being an operational backbone to becoming a strategic differentiator. We have moved from manual dispatches and fragmented systems to connected platforms and semi-autonomous operations. But what is emerging now is something far more powerful: a closed loop ecosystem where every movement, every vehicle, and every data point feeds intelligence back into the system. And in this section, we will start with an overview of what closed loop logistics truly means, and then trace how logistics automation has evolved over time to make this possible. Because understanding this evolution from linear to looped, from reactive to predictive, That is the key to seeing how tomorrow's supply chains will operate not as networks of assets, but as networks of intelligence. Now, why are we talking about closed loop logistics automation today? When automation in logistics is not really, that new. The answer lies in what is changing around us. Driver shortages, rising labor costs, safety concerns, all are pushing the logistics industry to its limits. And in that environment, closed loop automation offers something the industry has been chasing for years, a path to operate continuously, efficiently, and safely without depending entirely on human intervention. So, what exactly is it? Well, at its core, the closed loop logistics automation is the autonomous and digitally orchestrated movement of goods within controlled, repeatable ecosystems, places like yards, ports, airports, and terminals. Think of it as creating predictable, self-managing transfer loops that run 24 by 7 with every movement captured, optimized, and learned from. Now, these loops come in three forms, and each one solves a different pain point in logistics. First, yard to dock automation, where autonomous trucks move goods within factory and warehouse zones, cutting idle time and safety incidents. Second, hub-to-hub shuttles, connecting logistics centers, ports, and rail yards through fixed autonomous corridors that can operate nonstop. And third, the the inter-terminal transfers, complex movements in airports and seaports that can now be handled by autonomous guided vehicles with remarkable precision. And together, these loops are rewriting how goods flow, targeting the most repetitive, high cost, and high risk points of logistics. And the result is powerful: safer operations, fewer bottlenecks, and far more predictable supply chain performance. But perhaps the most exciting part is what is next. Now, this is where it becomes interesting, because when you look at global players like Volvo, Kalmar, Terberg, Funride, and Outrider are already turning pilot projects into real commercial operations, integrated stacks, combining autonomous tractors, remote operation systems, autonomous guided vehicles or AGVs, and even megawatt charging are all becoming the new normal at ports, airports, and mega distribution centers. And over the next 6 to 8 years, we will see a full transition from remote assisted autonomy to truly driverless logistics ecosystems. And that's where the future gets exciting, because this evolution isn't just about machines replacing labor, it's about systems replacing uncertainty. So with that foundation in place, let's step back for a moment and see how we got here, how logistics automation has evolved over time, and how each wave has built the foundation for the closed loop systems we see emerging today. And if we look at how logistics automation has evolved, it's been a gradual but very intentional journey. Each stage laying the foundation for the next. It began around 2015 with a breakthrough moment at Rotterdam's Maasvlakte 2 terminal. This was the world's first port to operate remote controlled quarry cranes and autonomous guided vehicles. A bold experiment that proved one crucial point, that remote operations could pave way for true autonomy. And then came 2018, when early partnerships in Germany like MAN and Einride with DB Schenker, where they started to test the idea of closed loop trucking ecosystems. And the results were impressive, because significant cost savings and nearly 90% lower emissions were achieved compared to diesel. And this was when automation began to step outside the port, not outside the port onto the road. And by 2021, a new wave of players entered the scene. Startups like Outrider, Fundride, and Aurora, they reimagined what yard automation could look like, merging autonomy with electrification and showing that innovation wasn't just the territory of incumbents anymore. The energy in the ecosystem shifted from experimentation to acceleration. And when we fast forward to 2024, where we are witnessing the convergence of automation and electrification at scale. Think of fully electric container terminals where zero emission cranes and vehicles work in harmony, showing that sustainability and autonomy are not parallel goals, but reinforcing ones. And now, as we step into 2025, the story reaches an inflection point. Ports like Singapore's Tuas, major rail yards, and airport hubs are running continuous pilots with autonomous tractors and AGVs. OEMs like Volvo and Daimler are scaling hub-to-hub autonomy in North America, marking the shift from remote-assisted systems to truly semi-autonomous closed-loop operation. All across. And this is the moment when automation, stops being a project and starts becoming an operating model. With that, I will now hand it over to Nishant, who will take us deeper into how automation is accelerating the next frontier of the supply chain and how the economics of these systems are reshaping the industry as we know it.
Now that we have covered how logistics hubs have evolved, in this section, we will shift our focus on the role of automation in shaping the next supply chain frontier. We will explore adoption is unfolding across yards and port operators, and the key tailwinds driving this momentum, and the enablers that are making large-scale deployment possible. Finally, we will look at how different regions are carving their own pathways toward autonomous hubs. Let's begin by looking at the current adoption landscape of closed-loop logistics. What we see is that adoption is happening across a variety of environments: airports, seaports, distribution centers, and manufacturing hubs. At airports like Changi, autonomous tugs are already being deployed to support ground operations. Ports such as CSP Abu Dhabi are scaling autonomous truck fleets and proving they can operate even in harsh conditions. Meanwhile, retail and FMCG distribution centers are integrating autonomous yard trucks into their daily routines, and manufacturing sites are moving ahead with partnerships that enable a gradual shift towards driverless logistics. Now, when we step back and look at this pattern, one thing becomes clear: adoption is progressing at different speeds depending on the environment. Ports and mega terminals are taking the lead with fully driverless operations, while manufacturing and retail distributors are moving steadily, driven by high throughput and cold chain needs. From this, a few perspectives emerge. First, adoption tends to move faster in the fenced and repeatable loops like yards, terminals, and cold stores before it eventually expands into open corridors. Second, as the hardware, that is tractors, AGVs, and the likes of it becomes commoditized, the true differentiator will be how seamlessly vehicles, docks, and management systems are all connected together. And third, some of the strongest near-term opportunities lie in cold chain and retail distribution centers, where automation not only tackles labor shortage, but also ensures SLA critical handling with faster returns on investment. So overall, while we are still early in the journey, the trend is clear. Deployment maturity is accelerating, moving from supervised pilots into more commercial scale driverless operations. Now, when we also look at the other side of it, where we have to focus on the real question, why is this acceleration happening now? Why closed loop logistics is becoming important day by day? The first driver is safety. In ports and yards, more than half of the incidents are linked to yard equipment. By automating repetitive high-risk tasks, operators are cutting exposures dramatically. Automated terminal coupling, for instance, reduced injury risk by almost 50%, making operations inherently safer. The second is efficiency. Labor account for 35 to 45% of trucking cost, where teleoperated or autonomous fleets, a single operator can oversee 10 to 20 trucks, slashing OPEX. Fully automated terminals are already reporting 20% higher throughput and profitability, proving that efficiency gains are real and repeatable. And this is where an analogy helps us to put in a perspective. Think about the shift from manual banking to digital banking. For decades, banks have operated with long queues, heavy paperwork, and physical presence. Once digital platforms matured, the same workforce could serve 10 times the customer around the clock without adding any branches. Closed loop logistics is creating the same kind of a leap, scaling operations without scaling labor. Finally, sustainability is a powerful tailwind. Interterminal automation is reducing the transfer cost by 50%, while electric autonomous shuttles are removing up to 250 tons of CO2 emissions per hub each year, adding energy optimization and cutting idle time and reducing energy use by 20 to 30%. And automation becomes a direct pathway to net zero targets. So when you connect all these factors, safety, efficiency, and sustainability, it is clear why momentum is building. These enablers are now in place, and closed loop logistics is no longer a pilot concept. It's become a scalable reality. Moving to the next part of it, here we are also focusing on how closed loop automation has immense potential to transform logistics. But the real question is what's enabling its automation today and what it still needs to evolve. Let's start with transport vehicle. Autonomous trucks and AGVs are already scaled in major hubs, but challenges remain around integration and docking. These technical hurdles are delaying the transition from pilot projects to seamless hub-to-hub and dock-to-dock operations. Then we have software systems. Yard management systems are already well established, but they often work in silos, which limits efficiency. Now, the real game changer here is orchestration software designed to connect all the vehicles, human operators, and as well as the energy systems into one API that is first mission control. That integration is what will unlock the true scalability. And on the teleoperation side, remote driving ensures reliability, but it's resource heavy. The shift toward teleassist is changing that picture. With strategic efficiency, one operator could soon oversee 20 or more vehicles in reducing labor intensity. And finally, the charging systems. Today, depot charging is the norm, but looking ahead to 2030 and 2035, we'll see high power, grid aware charging becoming a standard. This will allow fleets to electrify at a scale and keep autonomous vehicles running 24/7. So if we put this together, these enablers are clear. Scalable vehicles, integrated software, efficient teleoperations, and future-ready charging. Each one is maturing at a different pace, but collectively they are what will push closed-loop automation and closed-loop logistics from early pilots to fully commercial reality. Now, when we look at the regional adoption of closed-loop logistics, the story unfolds quite differently across the US, Europe, and China, each moving each moving forward, but with its own set of priorities and constraints. Starting with the US, the ports hit record volumes in mid 2025, even as the imports soften under the tariff pressure. The focus here is on scaling yard to dock and hub to hub automation. Outrider is now deploying commercial inside distribution centers. And while players like Aurora and Volvo DHL are running live hub to hub lane in Texas. Regulatory momentum is also building. Texas has already proved driverless heavy trucks, and California, on the other side, is drafting rules that will follow and that will enable level 4. That said, adoption speed is being tempered by labor union pushback and particularly ITT operations. On the other side, when we look at Europe, the pathway is more cautious but steady. Ports like Rotterdam are expanding yard to dock pilots, while container throughput across European ports continues to grow, showing the need for efficiency. Germany, on the other side, has permitted level 4 autonomous vehicle zones, and the UK is aiming on autonomous truck services by 2026. However, the fragmented regulation across European nations remains a challenge, showing progress on cross-border hub-to-hub operations, even as intra-terminal automation becomes more established. Meanwhile, China is setting a new benchmark in terms of scaling. Shanghai moved over 51 million TEU in 2024 and hit a record of 5 million in a single month in 2025, underlining how resilient flows are. Automation is expanding under a tightly managed state-led framework where approvals are focused on major ports. Qingdao, for example, is set a world record of 61 moves per hour, and its yard to dock fleets continue to grow with large deployments of AGVs and continuous autonomous trucks. Here, the momentum is strongest in megaports, while nationwide adoption remains deliberately controlled. So across regions, we see three distinct patterns: scaling through regulations in the US, steady but fragmented adoption in Europe, and a statewide expansion in China megaports. Together, these pathways are shaping how global hubs will converge on autonomy over the next decade. Now that we have explored how closed-loop logistics is taking shape globally through adoption, enabling technologies, and regional pathways, the next question becomes one of the economics. So in this section, we will look at the strategic investments and long-term profitability. We will begin by comparing CapEx and OpEx trade-off by examining how the upfront investments in automation stack up against the long-term operational savings they deliver. And then we will discuss the risk and challenges that come with these investments, along with the workaround operators are already putting in place to mitigate them. This will help us understand not just the technological promise of automation, but also the financial logic that underpins the long-term success. And we know when we start talking about economics of closed-loop logistics, it comes down to this one simple question: where does balance lie between CapEx and OpEx? And we have put together an interesting example here. And when we look at the manual model first, the traditional one-to-one setup where every truck has a dedicated driver, the upfront CapEx looks light, around 2 to 3 million for a fleet of 10 vehicles. But then when we look at on the operational expenditure, that's where the drag comes into picture. Labor alone eats up nearly 700,000 a year, and once you add these repairs, energy, and other operational expenses, we are close to 900,000 annually. Now the shift to autonomous operations where one operator can remotely supervise up to 5 vehicles. Here, the capex goes up roughly to 3 to 3.5 million because the teleoperator system and the integration cost. But the operational expenditure begins to drop down to 600,000. The savings mainly come from the reduced labor intensity. And if we look further ahead on the fully autonomous operations, tele-assist model where a single operator manages up to 10 vehicles, capex climbs up again close to 5 million, largely because of the advanced sensors and software stack. But operational expenditure, OPEX, keeps falling, nearing $500,000 a year. So while the investment grows, the efficiency curve bends sharply upward. Labor cost shrink and downtime reduces, and as well as throughput has improved.
Yeah. Very well summarized, Nishant. Thank you for that. And you're right that there is the real business story here. And the higher capital in the beginning, sure, but once the system stabilizes, you are looking at around 40 to 50% lower operating costs compared to manual fleets. And that's not just saving money; it is freeing up capacity. It's improving reliability and of course lowering all the logistic risks. Now, so the real question for operators isn't whether to automate, it is how soon they want those savings to start showing up on the balance sheet.
Exactly. And now when we move to the next part, now we have seen how compelling closed loop logistics is. We have seen quite interesting capex versus opex discussion. But then the success of it really completely depends on how well we manage the risk that come with it. There are three challenges that stand out. First one is definitely the cyber security. At There are hubs that have evolved and that will evolve into connected ecosystems. The attack surface expands. Malware, ransomware, and system intrusions all become real threats. Just one breach can bring automated workflow to a halt and cause days of downtime. In fact, nearly 60% of ransomware attacks in logistics over the last few years have been targeted on trucking subsectors. And the workaround here is pretty clear. Automation investments must go hand in hand with strong cyber defense. That means continuous monitoring, active recovery protocols, and building cybersecurity right into the automation architecture, not as afterthought. The second challenge is labor dynamics. Automation naturally disrupts established roles in ports and yards, and that makes it a central issue in union discussions. With structured reskilling programs and a clear agreement, projects can easily face resistance and even strikes. The pragmatic way forward is to make labor part of the journey, bring them in early, and creating reskilling pathways and maintain open communication on how automation complements rather than replacing the workforce. And then there is operational safety and workflow misalignment. A good example here is the Port of Auckland. They faced repetitive software glitches, poor coordination between manual and automated operations, and even fatal accidents during rollout. Injuries actually tripled between 2018 and 2021. It shows how governance gap can undermine safety. The lesson here is clear. Technology alone isn't enough. We need rigorous process alignment, phased rollout, and a stronger governance framework to prevent those same pitfalls.
Yeah, you're right, Nishant. And when you step back, it really comes down to balance and these risks that you just talked about. Uh, Cyber threats, labor challenges, and safety issues, these are all manageable with the right approach. Strong digital safeguards, structured labor engagement, and disciplined, governance can create, resilience. And because ultimately the goal isn't just profitable automation, it is sustainable automation that strengthens long-term, competitiveness. Now, when if you move ahead, Nishan, to the next section, and this is where uh, you know it is important to also explore the pathways to a fully autonomous supply chain, a vision where logistics hubs, fleets, and networks operate continuously 24/7 with minimal human intervention. And we will begin by looking at how OEMs and automation enablers are racing to scale solutions, each focusing to create the next generation of autonomous powerhouses. Then we will shift to the value chain, examining how autonomy is disrupting traditional roles, reshaping partnerships, and creating new spaces for collaboration and competition. And finally, we will take a forward looking view into the future roadmap, mapping how today's pilots and semi autonomous operations evolve into a truly closed loop, driverless supply chain. And this is where everything comes together, not just with technology and economics, but the long term transformation of logistics as a whole. So that's the landscape of how the journey to full autonomy comes together. And to unpack who is winning the race and why partnerships matter, I will hand it back again to Nishan to walk us through the next section to come. Over to you, Nishant.
So when we look at the race towards fully autonomous hubs, three groups really stand out: leaders, forerunners, and seekers. But what's becoming clear is that the winners won't be any one of these acting alone. Let's start with automation leaders. These are mostly the enablers, the ones offering full stack deployment from integration to safety systems. They have mastered yard and port operations. So, so they will be well focused, and regulators are going to trust them. A great example is Westwell Q trucks already running in GCC ports. That said, even these leaders still depend on OEMs for the trucks themselves. Westwell is the rare exception. Going forward, real leadership will come from partnerships. Take Calmer's collaboration with Forterra. They are pushing vehicle development closer to level 3 autonomy. That's the model we will see more and more often, enabling and expertise blending the OEM hardware into the hardware and software system. Then we have the forerunners, the OEMs proving the high level of autonomy can actually work. Volvo's Vera project is a perfect example. It showed that OEMs can move beyond pilots and demonstrate scalable hub-to-hub automation. And finally, there are the seekers, the OEMs trying to close the gap. Often, though, collaborations, T-Berg's partnership with Fernride is a good case. They are retrofitting tractors with autonomous capability, but seekers that don't develop their own autonomy IP risk being pushed into the corner. Essentially becoming hardware supplier in a software-defined industry where margins will keep tightening. And that's the heart of it. So the real race isn't the OEM versus enablers. It's about who can build the strongest ecosystem together. When the OEMs meet the enablers' agility, that's when autonomy becomes commercially viable. The leaders of the future will be those partnerships that make autonomy work, not as pilots, but as a true 24/7 availability scale. And when we go to the next part, wherein we'll focus on different disruptions in the value chain, when we there are three shifts that we have already seen. The first is this blurring of boundaries between the OEMs and enablers, which was evident in our previous slide as well. OEMs have always supplied the hardware, trucks, guided vehicles, crane, while enablers handled the software, the orchestration, automation layers as well. But that clear line is collapsing. OEMs now need autonomy stacks to stay relevant, and enablers like Fernride and Westwell are stepping up with full stack solutions. It's creating interdependency where long-term leaderships won't come from competition alone, but from collaboration. The second disruption is the rise of end users as active influencers of innovation. Logistics operators, port authorities, and big shippers like DHL, DB Schneider, and Walmart and Amazon as well. They are no longer passive customers. They are shaping the roadmap for the future. They are demanding integrated, interoperable solution that actually work together. And as anchor buyers, they are forcing both OEMs and enablers to standardize APIs, safety layers, charging systems, so everything connects across the systems. And finally, there's a clear shift from hardware to software economics. The real economics is moving away from machines themselves into orchestration platforms, teleoperations layers, and as well as intelligent charging systems. Those without proprietary software risk are being pushed to the value chain into lower margin hardware roles. Meanwhile, new monetization models are emerging, such as subscriptions, fleet optimization, data driven insights. They are becoming the core of how the industry captures the value.
Yeah. And Nishant, I would like to just add on a perspective over there. First of all, thank you for nicely summarizing it. Uh, you know, the real transformation is already happening underneath, and the companies that win won't just build great equipment or great code. They will build ecosystems that combine the two, and the leadership will belong to those who can adapt, who balance hardware scale with software driven value, because in the end that's what defines the future of this industry. uh, when we look ahead, we believe, and if you can move to the next slide, Nishant, when we look ahead, we believe the future of closed loop logistics won't be shaped by individual players. It will be defined by ecosystems where OEMs, automation enablers, and end users come together to unlock the next level of efficiency, safety, and sustainability. And let's unpack that a little. Uh, in the short to midterm, these ecosystems will really take shape through partnerships. OEMs can't win this race alone, and enablers can't scale without OEM hardware. And that's why collaborations like the ones we discussed earlier are becoming the true building blocks of leadership. And over time, these partnerships will evolve into fully integrated ecosystems, delivering autonomy at scale and creating a new standard for operational efficiency. But where will the real value come from? Increasingly, it is shifting from hardware to software. And right now, the orchestration platforms and teleops layers are what drive differentiation in pilot programs. As adoption expands, software will sit at the center of monetization through subscriptions, optimization services, and data driven insights, while hardware slowly becomes commoditized. Now, so who decides how fast this transformation happens? And the answer lies with the end users, which are the ports, the largest logistics, operators and shippers that are no longer passive buyers. They are active participants shaping this evolution. They are demanding interoperability, setting ROI benchmarks, and writing procurement standards that will determine which solutions scale and which ones stay stuck in pilot mode. And finally, we see net zero autonomous hubs as the end game. Uh, Today, electrified fleets are already proving that emissions reduction can go hand in hand with operational efficiency. And as high power, grid aware charging infrastructure continues to expand, these hubs will evolve into true 24 by 7 autonomous powerhouses, cutting costs, boosting safety, and advancing sustainability goals all at once. So if we bring this all together, the pathway to a fully autonomous supply chain will be defined by four major shifts. Ecosystems over solo plays, number one. Number two, software driving value. Third, end users as market makers. And fourth, the rise of net zero hubs. And together, they represent not just incremental improvement, but a fundamental reshaping of the global logistics. So that brings us to the discussion part of today's session. Nishant and I are happy to take your questions, anything around technology readiness, commercialization timelines, or business cases for autonomy. Drop them in the chat and let's unpack them together. Uh, yeah. All right. We can see some exciting questions popping up. We can certainly, take a few of them today, and we will revert, the rest with our responses in the next, couple of days. So the first question that I can quickly just read out for all the, participants here. Uh, how realistic is the expectation of achieving 70% cost savings through autonomous hub operations, especially when most container ports are still struggling to make automation economically viable? Now, that's a very, very valid and often misunderstood point. The 70% figure isn't a blanket number. It reflects, mature autonomous hubs operating in closed, high throughput environments where utilization is continuous. Uh, imports imports or intermodal terminals. Cost efficiency depends on scale, dwell time optimization, and driver to vehicle ratios dropping below one. So while ports have seen mixed ROI because of high capex and operational volatility, enclosed hubs like distribution centers and private yards are achieving faster payback cycles, often under 3 years. And the difference lies in controlled environments, predictable traffic, and integrated teleoperations, which allow scaling, autonomy economically. There is another question, which maybe I can ask Nishant to take
Yeah.
up. Considering safety and regulatory, I'm just reading out the question for all the participants here. Considering safety and regulatory barriers, especially for public roads, are autonomous hub-to-hub shuttles truly feasible in the near term? Nishant, do you want to take
Yeah,
that question?
yeah, definitely. Thanks, Arvind. Uh, the answer to that question is yes, but with the caveats. Full public road autonomy is still years away in most regions. Though Germany has already introduced legal framework for level 4 and level 5 vehicles. And what's happening now is phased autonomy, confined yards, then controlled hub-to-hub corridors, and finally mixed traffic routes. So the technology ready before regulation is, so the near term play is hybrid autonomy, teleoperated vehicles within fenced corridors and supervised highway pilots. And the real innovation will come from how operators blend human oversight with artificial intelligence to meet legal and safety threshold without stalling the momentum.
Yeah. Yeah, very well articulated, Nishant. Thanks for that response. I hope the question gets pretty much well addressed over there. We have another question from a technology standpoint, and the question is, what is proving harder, the autonomy itself or the orchestration between different systems like yard management, teleops, and charging? And this is pretty much an extension of Nishant, what you responded. So honestly, I can put my perspective, but if you look at the orchestration is the harder nut to crack here, and the autonomy piece, which includes various components, various building blocks like the sensors, the lidars, or drive-by-wire tech, these are definitely advancing much, much faster. But making it all talk to legacy systems like the TMS or the WMS or the teleoperation platforms in real time, that's where the complexity spikes. And each hub, today operates like its own, ecosystem. So let's say, for example, one supplier handles the yard tractors, another the charging pack, or the charging park, or another the WMS. And unless these are integrated under a unified digital twin or control layer, you don't get true closed loop visibility. And that's exactly where early adopters are investing now, which is in interoperability rather than just vehicle, you know, autonomy. I hope, that perspective addresses the question which you had, but glad to share more thoughts on that if needed. So of course, I'm just looking at the clock as well, and I can see there are many more great questions coming in, and while we may not have the time to cover them all right now, we will make sure that each one is addressed and you will receive the full deck along with responses right in your inbox. So yeah, on behalf of all of us at FutureBridge, thank you for spending your time with us today. The search, for new technologies, emerging applications, and next generation opportunities has never been more important. And that's exactly what drives our work every day. We truly hope today's session offered you fresh insights and new perspectives to think about how automation and closed loop logistics will shape the next era of supply chain transformation. If there is anything you would like to explore further, or if you would like our teams to help in identifying opportunities specific to your business, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you once again for joining us, and it's been a pleasure having you here. We look forward to connecting again in our upcoming webinars. Have a wonderful day ahead. Until then, signing out from here. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining. Have a nice day. Bye.